A renowned doctor adopted an orphan girl solely to care for her sick daughter. One day, upon arriving home, she was shocked by what she saw. Elise Armitage was a prestigious doctor, known for her surgical skill and her impeccable composure in high-pressure situations. According to her, her only daughter, Clara, a 12-year-old girl, had been diagnosed with a rare and debilitating illness that confined her to home, and Elise found herself increasingly isolated, both personally and emotionally. Amid this storm, an idea emerged that, to many, might have seemed unthinkable. Elise decided to adopt Evelyn, a girl about to turn 17 who, after a life of neglect and temporary homes, had long stopped expecting to be adopted. The reason for the adoption wasn't the desire to form a maternal bond with Evelyn but rather to find someone who could be Clara's eyes and ears, someone to keep her company while Elise was at work. When Evelyn was called into the orphanage director's office, she felt a mix of anxiety and hope. It was rare for a girl her age to be chosen for adoption. Her heart pounded as she waited for news, thinking it might just be another interview that would lead nowhere. After all, she had learned not to build up too many expectations. When the director announced that Evelyn had been chosen by a renowned doctor to be adopted, a chill ran down her spine. Evelyn didn't know what to expect, but there was a small flame of hope burning inside her. Perhaps, she thought, she had finally found a place where she could belong. Little did she know that the adoption wasn't an act of love, but a necessity for Elise. When Elise's black car pulled up to the orphanage entrance, Evelyn watched through the window, trying to guess what kind of person was about to change her life forever. Elise stepped out of the car with a commanding presence, each movement of hers seemed calculated and precise. Evelyn's eyes met Elise's for a brief moment, and she felt a mix of admiration and discomfort. Elise was the type of person who seemed unshakable, someone who didn't give in to emotions easily. The drive to Elise's home was silent. It wasn't just the house that intimidated her, but the weight of everything that was to come. Elise, with her serious demeanor and firm voice, had made it clear from the beginning, Evelyn would be there to care for Clara, Elise's daughter, who suffered from a mysterious illness. Elise didn't seem to seek affection or form bonds with Evelyn. She needed someone to be by Clara's side, to be the eyes and hands she couldn't always be. Climbing the stairs, Evelyn felt the weight of the moment. Each step seemed to take her deeper into a reality she did not fully understand. When she reached the second-floor hallway, she stopped in front of a slightly open door, from which soft breathing sounds emanated. It was Clara, she knew. She took a deep breath before continuing to the room Elise had designated for her. The room was larger than any place Evelyn had ever called her own. A canopy bed occupied the center, surrounded by dark wooden furniture and heavy curtains that blocked the late afternoon light. She placed her suitcase on the floor and walked to the window, opening the curtains slightly to let some light in. The twilight bathed the room in a soft orange hue, but the beauty of the moment was quickly overshadowed by the reality that awaited her. Clenching her fists at her sides, Evelyn murmured to herself, "I can do this." And with that thought, she turned to leave the room, ready to meet Clara and discover her place in this new and complex family dynamic. The first meeting between Evelyn and Clara was filled with tension. Clara, seated in her wheelchair, seemed to reflect a daily struggle against pain and limited movement. Her eyes carried a sadness that Evelyn felt immediately. Evelyn approached carefully, doing her best not to intrude on Clara's space. She sat beside her, attempting to convey a sense of calm and comfort. "Hi, Clara. I'm Evelyn. I'm here to help, to be a friend. If you need anything, I'll be by your side," Evelyn said, her voice gentle and full of sincerity. Clara looked at Evelyn, her eyes revealing a mix of surprise and gratitude. It was as if Evelyn's presence, a new hope, offered a small escape from her painful and solitary routine. As days passed, Evelyn worked hard to understand the complexities of Clara's life. The daily routine involved more than just meeting basic needs. It was about learning to read Clara's unspoken signals, understanding when a simple gesture of affection could make a difference, and being ready to offer support in moments of crisis. Evelyn began to see Clara's silent struggle, the moments when pain made her introspective, and the days when Clara tried to smile to show she was fighting. Every small act of support Evelyn provided, from helping with physical therapy sessions to simply being there for soothing conversations, helped build a stronger bond. Evelyn began to feel the weight of the responsibility she had taken on, but also the deep satisfaction that came from knowing she was making a significant difference in Clara's life. Over time, Evelyn's presence started to bring small changes to Clara's life. Clara began to open up a little more, showing smiles that were rare before Evelyn's arrival. The gentle companionship and consistent care Evelyn provided were slowly brightening Clara's world, offering her moments of relief and a glimmer of hope that had been missing for so long. With Evelyn's arrival, life in the mansion began to revolve around new rules, established with the precision and care of someone who didn't want to leave anything to chance. Elise's intention was not only to create a safe environment but also to ensure that Clara received the exclusive attention and care her condition required. However, the rules Elise set for Evelyn were stricter than the young girl could have imagined. On a sunny afternoon, Elise decided to explain the new guidelines to Evelyn, who was sitting at the dinner table, looking at Elise with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Evelyn," Elise began, her voice firm but not without a hint of concern, "we need to discuss some important rules to ensure everyone here is comfortable and safe." Evelyn nodded, her eyes wide and attentive. She felt a strange mix of nervousness and hope, unsure of what to expect. Elise continued, adjusting her glasses on her nose and staring at Evelyn with a serious gaze. "First," Elise said, "I want you to understand that our priority is Clara's well-being. She is dealing with a condition that requires privacy and a calm environment. Therefore, I ask that you do not mention anything about boys or anything outside of this house." Evelyn furrowed her brow, confused by the restriction. "But why can't we talk about boys or the outside world?" she asked, trying to understand the need for such rules. Elise took a deep breath before responding. "Clara needs to focus on her recovery without distractions. Boys in the outside world might bring unnecessary worries and distractions. Also, I want to ensure that you and Clara can build a relationship that isn't influenced by external pressures." Evelyn felt a pang of discomfort. In the orphanage, she had developed a certain yearning for freedom, for exploring the world beyond the walls of her old home. Now, with these new rules, it felt like she was being put into a new cage, and the idea of not being able to share her concerns or thoughts about the outside world was unsettling. "I understand, but does this mean I can't make friends or talk about things that interest me?" Evelyn asked, trying to grasp the extent of the rules. Elise smiled gently, recognizing the concern on Evelyn's face. "You can make friends, but I ask that you prioritize conversations about Clara and our life here. And remember, the outside world can wait. What's most important now is creating a safe and nurturing environment for Clara." Evelyn remained silent, absorbing Elise's words. The desire to be part of this new family and to help Clara recover was strong enough that she accepted the rules, even though they were difficult to digest. Over the weeks, Evelyn had noticed that Clara seemed more isolated than expected. Despite Elise's constant presence and extreme care, Clara rarely left her room or interacted with the world around her. Medical visits were discreet and kept secret, and Evelyn only saw Elise and a few nurses who came and went quickly, like shadows in a well-guarded life. That afternoon, Evelyn couldn't take it anymore. Her desire to understand what was happening with Clara consumed her thoughts. She decided she needed to know more, but in a careful manner, without breaking Elise's rules. Scanning the books around her, Evelyn stumbled upon an old medical book that seemed out of place among the novels and biographies. With great curiosity, she opened the book and began to leaf through it. The content seemed complex and technical, but Evelyn was determined to find some clue about Clara's condition. What intrigued her was a chapter on rare diseases and experimental treatments that seemed to fit the description of Clara's isolated life. The book, written decades ago, mentioned old methods and extreme care used to treat diseases that had no cure at the time. Evelyn's eyes lit up with the discovery. Although the book didn't provide direct answers, it offered insight into the type of treatment Clara might be receiving. This discovery only heightened her curiosity and the sense that there was more going on than Elise was willing to share. At that moment, Evelyn decided that if she wanted to truly understand Clara's condition, she would need to find a way to uncover what was happening. Evelyn knew Clara wasn't an ordinary girl. In the days she had spent in the mansion, she had witnessed Clara's fragile health and the intensity with which Elise cared for her daughter. But what Evelyn still didn't fully understand was why all the protection and secrecy surrounding Clara's condition. On a sunny morning, Evelyn decided to help Clara with a task that had been carefully planned by Elise. The nurse was busy with other responsibilities, and Elise was out of the mansion for an appointment. Clara was sitting at the kitchen table, with a distant look as she tried to concentrate on a simple puzzle. Evelyn approached with a smile, trying to create a relaxed environment. In the back of her mind, however, her thoughts were filled with unresolved questions. The conversation between the two began to flow more naturally. Clara revealed, in an almost hesitant tone, that she felt lonely and isolated, despite all her mother's attention. "She does everything for me, but it feels like she doesn't want anyone to know what's really going on," Clara said, with an expression reflecting deep pain. Evelyn felt a pang in her chest seeing Clara's sadness. She knew there was more behind the facade of extreme care. Later that day, while Clara rested, Evelyn discreetly explored the house, searching for something that could explain the true nature of Clara's illness. Access to Elise's office was restricted, but curiosity and the desire to understand the situation led her to try and take a closer look. The door was locked, but Evelyn noticed a small gap in the window. From there, she was able to see a desk full of papers and documents, some of which seemed related to medical issues. Among the papers, Evelyn saw a report titled with mentions of an experimental treatment and possibly a diagnosis that was not widely known. Her heart raced with the discovery. It was as if Elise was hiding something crucial about Clara's condition. When Elise returned and found Evelyn in the living room, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Elise had an expression that mixed concern and a slight tension. Evelyn felt she was on the brink of something important but didn't know how to approach Elise without raising suspicion. The subsequent conversation with Elise was tense but courteous, with Evelyn trying to understand the limits of the situation without seeming too inquisitive. The next morning, Elise left early for a new medical consultation, leaving Evelyn and Clara alone at home. Evelyn seized Elise's absence to begin a deeper investigation. With her heart racing and a mix of fear and courage, Evelyn headed to Elise's office, determined to explore what lay behind that locked door she had seen earlier. With meticulous care, Evelyn managed to open the door using a small tool she had found in the mansion's attic and went straight to the desk where she had seen the documents before. This time, she was more prepared to search for any evidence that could explain Elise's behavior. As she rummaged through the papers, Evelyn found a folder labeled "Confidential Clara Reports." Her heart raced as she opened the folder. Inside were a series of detailed medical reports about Clara's condition, but something was clearly wrong. Evelyn noticed that many of the documents were dated with the same weeks and months, and some information was suspiciously blurred or erased. What shocked Evelyn the most was a series of handwritten notes by Elise suggesting that the severity of Clara's illness was being manipulated. One particular phrase stood out: "The intensity of the symptoms needs to be controlled to keep Clara dependent and under constant surveillance." Evelyn's eyes widened as she read this. It was as if Elise was using Clara's illness not just as a means to maintain control but also to justify her actions and manipulate the situation to her advantage. With a heavy heart and her mind spinning from the magnitude of the discovery, Evelyn sat in one of the office chairs, trying to process what she had just found. The pain in her chest was almost physical, knowing that Clara was being used as a pawn in a cruel game. The idea that Elise was manipulating Clara's condition to ensure that the girl remained dependent and vulnerable was disturbing and heartbreaking. Evelyn knew she needed a plan to expose the truth and ensure Clara's safety. But before taking action, she needed to gather more evidence and find a way to share her findings without putting her own safety at risk. The desire to protect Clara and the need for justice drove her, but Evelyn also knew the situation was delicate and that any mistake could have devastating consequences. That night, while Clara slept and Elise was at what seemed like an endless meeting, Evelyn stayed awake, devising a meticulous plan. She prepared a folder with the documents and notes she had found, readying herself to confront Elise or, if necessary, seek external help. Evelyn understood that Elise had manipulated Clara's condition, fabricating an illness to keep her captive in a gilded cage and manipulating everyone around her to sustain her own facade of dedication and control. The next morning, with the documents and notes in hand, Evelyn headed to the office and found Elise walking through the front door, looking tired and wearing her usual expression of someone who had faced a long day of work. Evelyn took a deep breath and, with the folder in hand, went straight to the point. Elise, Evelyn began, her voice trembling slightly but firm. I found something I need you to see. Elise raised an eyebrow, surprised to see Evelyn holding the documents. What is this, Evelyn? Evelyn handed the folder to Elise with steady hands, her mind racing with the gravity of the moment. Elise quickly flipped through the papers, her face changing from surprise to an expression of resignation. It was clear that the doctor knew the game was up. You shouldn't have seen this, Elise said with a cold voice, trying to maintain her composure. The truth is more complicated than you think. I don't need any more explanations, Elise, Evelyn responded, her voice growing emotional. I understand what you did. Clara isn't really sick. You fabricated her condition to control her and manipulate everyone around us. Elise sighed, closing her eyes for a moment before looking at Evelyn with deep sadness and resignation. You're right, Evelyn. I did it because I didn't know how else to cope with the pain of losing Clara. I created this lie to keep her close to me, to feel like I still had control over something in my life. You used Clara as a pawn in your game, and now she's trapped here, without a chance to live the life she deserves. I was protecting Clara. The world out there is cruel. Elise said, her voice choked with emotion. Elise's revelation was just the beginning, and Evelyn knew she needed to act quickly to ensure Clara was freed from this emotional and physical prison. With a sense of resolute determination, Evelyn made a plan to expose the truth to the world, ensure Clara received the help she needed, and seek justice for Elise's cruel manipulation. Evelyn made a list of the contacts she needed. She remembered human rights lawyers, organizations dedicated to exposing abuses, and anyone who could help reveal the truth. The first thing she did was leave the mansion with a clear purpose. She needed to find a way to contact these people without drawing Elise's attention, who would not hesitate to block any attempt to uncover what was hidden. She headed to a discreet cafe in downtown Charleston, where in the past, she had made a connection with an investigative journalist who might be able to help her. The cafe, with its simple tables and cozy atmosphere, was an ideal place to discuss sensitive matters away from curious eyes. Finally, the journalist, a middle-aged man with a keen gaze and serious demeanor, arrived. He introduced himself as Robert Dawson. Evelyn, with her heart racing, explained the situation with anguishing clarity, revealing Elise's Machiavellian plan and Clara's suffering. Each word she spoke seemed to weigh even more on her heart, but the need for justice drove her forward. Robert listened attentively, his face showing a mix of surprise and concern. He asked a few questions to ensure he understood the situation fully, and then, after a pause, nodded in understanding. Evelyn, this is a serious case. We will need to gather concrete evidence and speak with some key people to expose the truth. You can count on me for that. Robert's response brought a sense of relief and a small spark of hope. Evelyn knew that the path ahead would be arduous, full of obstacles and challenges, but now she had an ally with experience and resources to help her. The news of the truth about Elise Armitage and her cruel manipulation of Clara's illness began to spread through the Charleston community with unexpected speed. When Evelyn returned to the mansion, things had changed. The silence that usually hung over the property now seemed charged with tension and anticipation. Neighbors, the community, and even the press were watching, eager to hear more about the scandal that had rocked the city. The contrast between the calm of the mansion and the agitation of the outside world could not have been more stark. At first, Evelyn felt the weight of responsibility and fear. The community's pressure for her story to be told correctly, the fear of Elise's reprisals, and the concern for Clara's safety left her anxious and overwhelmed. However, as the days passed, she began to feel growing support, something she had never experienced before. Supportive messages started arriving, and the community rallied around her. The support came not just in the form of words. Many local people, who previously had no direct connection to Evelyn or the mansion, began to mobilize. Some offered practical help, such as legal assistance or emotional support, while others organized events to raise funds and increase awareness about the situation. One morning, while Evelyn was walking through the neighborhood, she saw a group of residents gathered in front of the mansion. The scene was touching: colorful flags, signs with messages of support, and a large group of people showing solidarity. The impact was also visible on Elise herself. As the scandal unfolded, Elise saw her prestige and reputation crumble. The pressure from the community and the media began to tighten, and Elise had no choice but to face the consequences of her actions. Clara, although still grappling with her own struggle, also began to feel the positive impact of the change. The visits and attention from the community brought a new energy to the house, helping to brighten the atmosphere and bring hope. Seeing Clara beginning to open up to the outside world, Evelyn felt that every effort was worth it. With Elise Armitage finally unmasked and confronted, Clara's world began to change dramatically. Clara woke up in a room that, although still part of the mansion, now seemed different, almost as if the light that had been absent had finally penetrated. Evelyn, who had become an unwavering source of strength and support, was by her side. Evelyn's presence was comforting, an anchor amid the tumultuous changes. The two were beginning to form a genuine bond, forged in adversity and the fight for truth. The newly hired care team was made up of highly qualified and compassionate professionals, committed to providing the best possible support for Clara's recovery. They were selected carefully, not only for their medical skills but also for their ability to offer emotional support. Unlike Elise, this new team was genuinely committed to Clara's well-being. The new environment Clara was in was designed to promote a complete recovery, and the changes were immediately visible. Clara began to experience a sense of freedom she had never known. The constant surveillance and fear of reprisals lessened, and for the first time in many years, she began to feel the lightness of relief. Her physical condition, previously worsened by Elise's manipulation, began to improve gradually. With appropriate medical support and a healthier environment, Clara could start rehabilitating, both physically and emotionally. Evelyn, who had become a constant presence in Clara's life, was by her side every step of the way. She helped with managing the new care and was also involved in Clara's daily activities. The new routine included therapy sessions, light physical exercises, and leisure moments that helped rebuild Clara's trust and emotional well-being. The transformation in Clara's life was not limited to her physical health. There was a renewed sense of safety and optimism that grew with each passing day. The bond between Evelyn and Clara continued to strengthen. Their conversations became more open and sincere. Clara shared her memories and fears, while Evelyn offered attentive listening and constant encouragement. The two found comfort in each other's company, and this mutual support helped ease the healing process. As Clara began to recover, life outside the mansion was also changing. The community, which had supported Evelyn in the fight against Elise, continued to show solidarity. The visibility of the case helped raise awareness about similar abuses, and many were now involved in causes related to supporting victims of manipulation and emotional abuse. Elise Armitage, once an imposing and respected figure in the medical world, now faced the inevitable consequences of her cruel and manipulative actions. The public revelation of her abuses and manipulations not only shattered the facade of perfection she had carefully built but also exposed a cycle of distrust and outrage. The law took stringent actions against her, and the courts were set to ensure that justice was served. And you, have you ever met or know someone who suffers from emotional and physical abuse? Let me know in the comments. Now, stay tuned for another gripping story.